What's up guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to look at the Light Beast raid. Alright, so before we go into it, let's just discuss quickly the abilities. So first up we've got Light Distortion. You'll see he'll roar and then he'll create this shield. Right, so when a shield comes up it will absorb some of the damage you deal. That damage that it absorbs will reduce the shield of course, and you'll eventually wear it down, get rid of it, and you can start hitting the boss again for full damage, right? The actual boss doesn't have a lot of HP. And it's because like he mitigates the damage with this shield. And each time he uses the shield, he'll like the next shield will get more HP, so it'll absorb more damage, right? So you want to burst this down as quick as you can, so that you try not to let him create too many shields, right? That way it'll be easier for you to kill once you get to the last phase. Pretty much you can't really avoid the first one, but you can avoid the second one if you can kill it fast enough. Alright, so then the next ability that he has is Thorn of Despair. So this one is like a basic attack that all of the beasts have, I believe, and it deals damage based on your defense, right? So if your defense is too low, it will do more damage to you. But if you have really high defense, that will help mitigate this a lot more, right? Because it's scaling off how much defense you have, similar to the R5 ability, where he does more damage if you have very low defense on your unit. And of course, if this only hits the front line, so make sure your frontliners have a decent amount of defense. If you're using a DPS in the front line, make sure they have Vampire to help heal themselves back up. And yeah, if your front line dies, then this will hit your back line, and that will be pretty hard to come back from, right? If that happens. And Light Sweep. So this one. This is one of the abilities where the boss will gain a turn counter, right? So what you'll see in the fight is that there's like a number on this ability, and it will go up every time you have a turn. So it's generally recommended not to bring too many violent units, because it will increase the number of stacks that this ability gets, and when he does his attack, it will deal damage based on the number of turns you've just had, right? So for this particular boss, try not to bring violence, violent runes. You can bring it on your healer, that's fine, because you'll need to heal, and probably keep the attack buff up. But for your DPS units, try not to use violent if you can. And finally, the Shining Rageful Breath. This one is like the ultimate ability at the very end. So this is so if he ever gets to this point, hopefully he doesn't, but he'll remove all your beneficial effects and hit you for a lot of damage, right? So it'll probably wipe you by then, or nearly wipe you if it gets to that point. Right, so let's go into the fight. I'll show you the runes at the end of the video, but we can see how the how the boss moves. So the first move, at the very start, he'll do the shield, right? You can see it there. There's the white bar, and you reduce it every time, whenever you deal damage to him, right? So now this is the Thorn of Despair. This one, it will hit only the front line, and you can see they didn't really take much damage. Both Trevor and Shaolin are DPS units, but both of them on Vampire, and they do very good burst damage. So especially Trevor, who has Brawler's Will. So when he takes damage, he'll activate that. It will make him take less damage and deal more damage, right? So I think you've probably seen him in Guild Wars very often, where you get him very low, and if he's on Vampire, he'll pretty much heal himself back to full once he does his second skill, right? Or if he crits with it. So he's very good for frontline, I believe, and Shaolin's good at pretty much every frontline if you can give her good Vampire runes. Now, apart from that, like all the other raid beasts, you want to have attack buff, which you can get from either Hua He if you happen to have her. If you don't have Hua He, you can use Colleen instead, it's still fine. Hua He is only, like, the reason to use Hua He is because she does damage, like good damage as well. She scales up attack for both her heals and obviously her damage. But Colleen is still a fine replacement. She's good, she's like slightly better in a way in that she does the free turn attack buff and it's on a free turn cooldown, whereas Hua He's one is like a 2-turn attack buff, 3-turn cooldown, right? So you can keep attack buff up on your team a lot better with Colleen. But you know, depending on who you have built, you can pick for your team, right? Colleen's probably easier to put in the front line, so if you use Colleen, you could probably put her in the front line, and therefore you could probably add like a different DPS in the back line, right? If you don't have both, like two good frontline DPS like Trevor and Shaolin. Then of course you want some defense breaks, right? My team doesn't exactly have the best defense breaks, right? I only have Phil, Mars, and Shaolin. So Shaolin's got the first skill, and that one is like not 100% harmful effect rate, so it's not that reliable. But it is like, you know, one way of getting it. And Phil Mars has got his second skill. It has a relatively short cooldown, and mine is on Violet, even though it's not good to have Violet, but I'm still able to survive with it. So, but if you don't have, you know, as strong runes, and also if you don't have max glory point buildings, you probably be taking more damage than I am. So you probably want to avoid running too many violent users. So he can do defense break. Also, there's Tark there in the team. Tark can bring Shaolin to, you know, on group hunt. If he does that, then she has a chance to proc defense break as well. Of course, that's still not that reliable. So if I had a good burst DPS that has a reliable defense break, I will probably use it instead of Tark. But I guess I could use Stella as well. But for me, like, it's been the most successful with Tark. It's actually kind of weird. So I just left Tark in. I have tried Stella before, but it fails occasionally. So I swapped them back. Right. So it's pretty much like very standard, apart from like, well, at least for like in that regard, that you need both defense break and a good attack buff as well. Like 2 units or units that can provide those, right? If you can fit in a branding effect in your team, go ahead. But you probably find it hard to bring that unless you have something like Cadiz. I mean, Stella does that too, but if you can make her work, then go ahead. Maybe you can use Stella instead of like Tor or something. Because obviously not everyone's gonna have Tor, but Stella, you probably have a decent chance of having her. Apart from that, you can get any sort of like good single target bursts will work. Teshar, even though he's a nat 5, he's also very good for this, especially if you rune him towards you know, having like to max crit with his own crit rate lead. Whereas because my Teshar is on max crit without lead, right? Because I use him in PvP. But if you build him specifically for dungeons, then you know you can maximize his stats that way, and he'll be pretty good for this. Other units you could consider, maybe like the magical archers, like the Wind One or Bethany. Bethany would probably be the most ideal because she has defense break on skill 1 because she's got elemental advantage against light. So she should defense break on this boss. So if you're lucky enough to have her, I would probably consider using her. But yeah, apart from that, try not to use anyone that's going to give you too many turns, like unnecessary turns. So things like Verd are not very good for this, in my opinion. You want to maximize damage. So whatever leader skill you're going to use, it should be either crit lead, and you know you sort of build your units towards that crit lead, or you run a attack power lead, right? So you could consider something like Ran if you farm the HOH. You could use like Water Monkey King would be okay for this, just because of his attack lead. Yeah, there's like definitely like other units you can consider. Just I can't think of any. I can't think of that many off the top of my head. But if you're wondering if like a unit that you have will work in this fight, in this boss, you can always ask me, and I'll let you know my opinion on whether it would work. Okay, so that pretty much covers it. Like you can see, like all the like the other mechanics throughout like the video. So even just here, you can see that the counter went up to 18, and that almost one-shot the Tark. So this ability, Light Sweep, that's why you don't want to have too many stacks on Light Sweep, right? So if you can help it, try to bring like Fight Runes or something like that instead of Violent. So that's why I recommend, if you're building like a Tark, try to give it Fight Runes instead of Violent. Okay, so I'll show you the runes on my unit, so you can use that as a reference. So first off, this is my Trevor. He's max crit with Theo's buff if he's got if he's done Relentless Strike, alright? And he's on Vampire because he leeches health back when he does damage, right? So that's because of Brawler's Will. He'll increase his attack power and decrease the damage he receives when he takes damage, right? And he's also self-buffing, which is quite nice. And he's on Revenge just because I could give it to him. He doesn't have to have a Revenge. Probably ideally you want to give him Fight instead, but pretty much any offset works. Whatever gives you the stats that you require. So you can see here he has like decent HP substats, right? He's got quite a bit of HP, even though he's on 2 attack runes, and he's got like a small amount of defense. So all up, he's got about 1k. I think that's pretty sufficient because his base defense is actually pretty decent, like for an attacker type. All right, so that's Trevor. This is my Shaolin. So Shaolin, again, she's on Vampire. She's already on Vampire for R5 anyway, but it works really well for all these raid beasts as well. You don't need to have Revenge either, but my Revenge runes are pretty good quality, so that's why she has it. If you had assumed equal quality like runes, then I'll probably give her Fight instead. But I don't have this sort of quality Fight runes right now, so I'm gonna keep her on Revenge. Like Revenge is still good on her. The reason you don't need Revenge though is because you already get to Revenge if this is on cooldown, her third ability. But you know, having Revenge is additional chances to proc Revenge, so it's always still good. But Fight is like a more universal buff to your whole team, right? You don't have to rely on a proc to get the damage. So that's why I would prefer Fight, but it's not necessary. If you can't give her Revenge, just give her any set or broken set that gets you the stats that you require. Typically you will probably build her for raid, so it should probably be at like 81% crit rate, which is convenient if you're using Field Mars because she'll still have max crit, and she pretty much full heals herself with the third ability. And if the first skill procs Twist Kick, which is the second skill, it's a random chance, then she does like decent burst and she'll heal back from that too. So this is my Hua He. So Hua He, I've built her pretty much specifically for these raids as a healer. She's good in pretty much every raid except for the water one, right? And these are her runes. They're not particularly amazing, but it does the job. So she's on speed, attack to maximize her heal while making her decently fast, right? In the ideal world, if you had really good fast substats on your Hua He and you could afford to give her attack percent in slot 2, then even better. But she probably doesn't get like priority on violent runes for you, so you probably wouldn't want to give her like those high quality speed runes, right? So you probably just give her speed and 2 attack runes, and that should work okay. Just give her some decent attack and speed substats. Ideally, if you're going to use her though, make sure that she has max immuse. Otherwise, it's probably better to use Colleen instead, because her heal is on a shorter cooldown. She doesn't need a particular offset, but if you can give her an offset, then give her fight. Alternatively, you could give her enhance or determination if you need defensive stats instead, but fight is never a bad thing, right? It's always nice to increase your damage. Alright, this is my Tor. So Tor, you've probably seen him many times in my rune videos. I don't really change his runes ever because it's very hard to upgrade him, but he is on Violet, and I need him on Violet for other stuff, right? So, but if yours is on Fatal, then it's probably better for these raids. But yeah, I prefer Violet on him though, because the Squall is on such a low cooldown, right? I was asked this before, why do I give Violet? And the reason I give him Violet is because he still one-shots people anyway with this set, right? So there's no reason to give him a Fatal set and do more damage, because in the end I'm still doing this, I'm still one-shotting them, doesn't matter which set I use. Alright, so yeah, that's how I built my Tor. My Filmars, again, you've probably seen him many times. With his own lead, he's got max crit, and yeah, he's just typical speed nuker, right? Pretty much you just want him to hit as hard as possible. If I didn't have to build him for PvP, obviously you'll probably build him for PvP, but if you didn't, then you probably make him hit a bit harder, right? You probably just give him attack slot 2 and speed substats instead, since it's quite easy to give him max crit. But yeah, this one's a PvP build, and this is my Tark. So Tark is like super squishy, so it's very easy for him to die, but he survives for most of the fight, which is important. He only really dies in the last phase, right? So ideally he would be on multiple fight sets, but I only have one right now. Maybe next rune removal I'll give him more fight, or like an extra fight set maybe, or 2, if I can get him to the substats or like the total stats that I want, right? So this one is built for DB10, but it will work in raids because I'm using crit lead, right? So 85 crit rate is to crit the dragon boss, but on the raid beast, he's got the extra crit lead from Filmars. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the light beast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in comments, and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Like anything I might have missed, let me know, and I'll be back with another raid beast probably in a couple of days or so. I'll see like how busy I am. Alright, so that's it from me. Thanks guys for watching. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.